Can I get real in here tonight? Can I speak to the hearts of some people who've been carrying weight in silence, who've been crying behind closed doors, smiling on the outside but breaking on the inside? Let me tell you something. Everybody who smiles at you is not for you. Everybody who says, I'm praying for you, ain't got prayer in their mouth or love in their heart. And God sent me here to tell you, don't tell people about your problem. You keep opening your heart to people who can't handle your depth. You're pouring out pain to people who are drowning in their own insecurity. And they can't hold your truth without dropping it. Some of y'all are bleeding in front of people who don't know how to bandage a wound. They only know how to spread infection. But there's a reason. Oh yes, there's a divine reason you're in that quiet place, that lonely place, that isolated place. It's not punishment. It's preparation. See, the problem isn't that you have a storm. The problem is you've been telling your storm to people who can't calm the wind. If you hear me tonight, if your spirit is stirred already, then stay with me. Because by the time this word is finished, you're going to stop looking for sympathy and start walking in strategy. By the time I'm done, you're going to understand why the silence is sacred, why the struggle was necessary, and why God said, keep it between me and you. You see, the first thing we've got to understand, church, is this right here. Not everybody is meant to carry your burden. Stop expecting people to show up for you in a place they were never designed to walk in. That's where the heartbreak begins, when you try to make temporary people carry permanent problems. You keep handing your heart to people who don't even know what to do with it. God gave you the assignment. You, not them. He gave you the vision. He gave you the dream. He gave you the weight. And yet, you keep turning to people who weren't in the prayer room with you. They weren't there when God whispered to you in the midnight hour. They weren't there when he called your name in the darkness. But now you want them to understand the pain of your process? Let me help you. You keep getting disappointed because you're seeking comfort from people who are not equipped to comfort you. You're trying to make someone a spiritual stretcher when they don't even have the strength to hold themselves up. You're looking for support from the wrong source. And I hear the Lord saying, stop placing divine expectations on human shoulders. They weren't called. You were. They weren't anointed for this. You are. Some of y'all been hurt not because people were evil, but because you tried to make them something they were never built to be. You trusted them with a secret that was never theirs to carry. You confided in someone who wasn't spiritually mature enough to understand your level of warfare. They're still fighting battles you passed 3 years ago, but you're expecting them to speak wisdom into your current storm? Let me make it plain. Just because someone loves you doesn't mean they can carry you. I know that's hard to hear, but it's true. There are people who genuinely care about you, but that doesn't mean they have the capacity to hold what you're dealing with. That doesn't mean they know how to encourage you when your faith is tested. That doesn't mean they can discern the weight of your calling. And some of you have been crushed by the disappointment of expecting spiritual clarity from someone who still lives in confusion. Well, let's be honest. You're mad at people who never told you they could handle your pain in the first place. You handed it to them without asking if they were strong enough to hold it. You gave your vulnerability to someone who didn't even ask for it. And now you're broken all over again. Not because of what they did, but because you trusted the wrong one. God told me to tell you, the reason the weight feels heavy is because you're trying to share it with someone who was never built to lift it. You've got to stop giving the sacred parts of your journey to people who treat it like gossip. Stop putting your destiny in the hands of the undisciplined. They'll mishandle it, they'll misuse it, and they'll misunderstand it. That's why some of you feel misunderstood. That's why your heart is tired. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're not too much. You've just been speaking a spiritual language to people who don't have the ears to hear it. There are places in your walk with God where the crowd has to fall back. There's some valleys you got to walk through with just you and Jesus. Don't be afraid when people fall off. It's divine subtraction. God is clearing the room so he can do private surgery on your soul. He's removing the noise so you can hear his whisper. He's teaching you how to stand, not with the crutch, but with his strength. That's why Jesus went alone so many times. He loved his disciples, but he still withdrew. He had to go where they could not follow. He had to pray where they couldn't hear. Because sometimes your breakthrough requires silence. Your elevation requires separation. Start telling people about your problem. Start taking your problem to the one who gave you the promise. Now let me go a little deeper, because some of y'all are still trying to make sense of why you had to go through what you went through. You've been asking God, why me? You've been looking around comparing yourself to other people who seem like they've got it easier. You've been wondering why the storm hit your house, why the struggle knocked on your door, why the pressure keeps building in your life. But I came to tell you tonight, it's because your pain has... See, God doesn't waste anything. Not your tears, not your trials, not your trauma. When you walk with God, even your pain has an assignment. Even the things that tried to break you are working for your becoming. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the silence, the sleepless nights, the weight on your chest when nobody knows you're drowning on the inside. All of that is fertilizer for your future. You think it's punishment, but it's preparation. You've got to understand, when God is shaping you for something greater, he doesn't take you the easy way. He takes you the transforming way. He puts you in situations that refine your character, that stretch your faith, that break your pride, and mold your spirit. Because if he gave you the blessing before he grew your soul, you would crush it, or it would crush you. That pain didn't come to kill you. It came to build you. It came to wake something up inside of you that comfort never could. You don't grow in the spotlight, you grow in the shadows. You grow when you're rejected. You grow when you're overlooked. You grow when you're misunderstood. That's when your roots go deeper. That's when your faith gets stronger. That's when your identity becomes anchored in something other than applause was given. Is that what you want from me? Is that what you want from me? Is that what you want from me? How many days do you remember? Some of you are trying to escape the very thing that's making you stronger. You're trying to pray your way out of a process that was sent to mature you. You're asking God to take it away, but he said, no, I'm going to take you through it. Because when you come out on the other side, you won't be the same. You'll be wiser. You'll be tougher. You'll be more compassionate. You'll have power in your testimony that can set other people free. You can't minister from a place you've never survived. You can't lead people out of a valley you've never walked through. That's why your pain matters. That's why the process is necessary. He's not just developing your strength. He's cultivating your authority. There is an anointing that only comes through affliction. And I get it. Nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants to carry the cross. But how can there be resurrection if there is no crucifixion? How can you wear the crown if you haven't walked the road of thorns? How can you have the oil if the olive has never been crushed? It's in the crushing where the calling is clarified. It's in the pressing where the power is produced. It's in the breaking where the blessing is born. Don't despise the pain. Let it grow you. Because here's what happens. When God brings you through something, you stop being easily shaken. You stop needing everybody to understand you. You stop breaking under pressure. You start walking with a quiet strength. Because you've been through fire and you didn't burn. You've been through floods and you didn't drown. You've been in the lion's den and you came out untouched. And now you don't need validation because your survival is your certificate. Process right now, you're in the fire, you're in the dark, you're in the fight. But hold on. Don't give up. Don't curse what God is using to grow you. Don't quit before you see the fruit, because when the dust settles, when the storm clears, when the tears dry, you're going to realize that the pain didn't break you. You're going to look back and say, if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't be who I am today. If I hadn't cried those tears, I wouldn't have found that strength. If they hadn't left me, I never would have discovered who I really was. What I thought was a breakdown was really a breakthrough in disguise. So hear me clearly. It's not just pain. It's purpose. It's not just suffering. It's shaping. God is doing something in you before he does something through you. That's why you've got to hold your peace, hold your position, and let the pain do what it came to do. Because when it's done, so will your weakness be. You got to understand something about healing. It doesn't always happen in front of people. Some of the deepest, most powerful healing you'll ever experience won't come on the stage, won't come with applause. Healing, real healing, often happens in private. It happens in the dark places. It happens when you're alone with your pain, alone with your questions, alone with your God. See, we live in a world that wants everything on display. Social media has trained us to believe that everything important must be posted, shared, and validated by likes and comments. But let me tell you this. God does his best work in silence. He does his deepest work in secrecy. Just because it's quiet doesn't mean you're not moving. Just because you're not being seen doesn't mean you're not being shaped. There are some things God will not allow you to expose to people because he knows they'll speak death over what he's trying to bring to life. Some of y'all are looking for people to understand a process that's still in progress. You're trying to show folks you're healing before it's ready. But it's dangerous to unwrap a wound too soon. It's dangerous to expose what God is still working on. Jesus himself, when he healed certain people, told them, don't tell anyone. That wasn't because the miracle wasn't real. It wasn't because it wasn't powerful. It was because timing matters. Exposure too early can damage what God is developing in you. And see, that's why some of you feel confused. You've been sharing too much too soon. You've been talking to people about your process before it's finished. And now you're carrying their opinions on top of your own wounds. Now you've got to heal from the pain and recover from their judgment. You've got to fight through your own doubt and silence their voices in your head. But healing doesn't come from them. It comes from him. And he doesn't need a platform to perform surgery on your soul. He just needs you to be still, to be quiet, to be available. Because in the stillness, God can speak clearly. In the privacy, he can reach places no human hand can touch. Some of the most powerful encounters you'll ever have with God won't be in a church building. They'll be in your car, in your bedroom, in your shower, on your floor, with your face buried in your hands, crying out, God help me. That's where the healing begins. Not when you post about it, not when you tell everybody what you're going through, but when you close the door, when you shut out the noise, when you say, God, it's just me and you now. Nobody else gets this. Nobody else sees me, but I know you do. And it's in those moments when your heart is bare, when your words are few, when your tears become your prayer, that the real healing takes root. Not the surface healing, not the fake I'm fine smile you wear in front of people, but the deep healing that goes down to the roots of your soul and starts pulling out the weeds of insecurity, bitterness, rejection, and fear. Because sometimes God won't let you heal in public because he knows people would interrupt the process. They'd give you advice rooted in their own trauma. They judge your journey through their own lens. But God wants to handle it his way, and his way often means closing the curtain, dimming the lights, and working in silence. You're not being ignored. You're being treated. You're not being overlooked. You're being protected. And I don't care what they say. It's better to be healed in hiding than celebrated while still bleeding. You've got to stop feeling guilty for disappearing for a season. You've got to stop apologizing for pulling back. Some people don't understand, but that's okay. You're not being antisocial. You're being restored. You're not being distant. You're being delivered. God is doing something in you that requires solitude. And when you come out, because you will come out, you won't need to explain yourself. You're not being buried, you're being planted. You keep running to people who can't fix what only God can heal. You're talking about your pain, your stress, your struggle, telling everybody who will listen. But you haven't brought it to the one who can actually do something about it. You're pouring out your heart in conversations, but you haven't poured it out in prayer. And the Spirit told me to say this tonight. You're telling your business to people who gossip when you should be talking to the God who delivers. We spend so much time venting to friends, posting our pain online, hoping for comfort from people who don't even have comfort in their own lives. You're looking for understanding from people who can't understand themselves. You're hoping for empathy from hearts that are hardened by their own issues. And I know you just want someone to get it, someone to hear you. But be careful who you let hear your heart. Be careful who you open up to when your soul is raw. Because not everybody who listens loves you, and not everybody who loves you knows how to carry you. There comes a point in your walk when you've got to stop seeking validation from man and start seeking revelation from God. You got to shift the conversation. Instead of always asking people, what should I do? Start asking God, what are you doing in me? Because people will talk about what you said. They'll twist your words. They'll use your weakness against you. But God will cover you, heal you, restore you, and strengthen you in silence. Some of you are confused and overwhelmed, not because the situation is too big, but because you've been talking to the wrong people about it. You're tired, not just from the weight of the burden, but from carrying the opinions of too many voices. You've got spiritual static because you tuned into everybody else's frequency except the one that matters. And God is saying, I've been waiting for you to come to me. I've been waiting to speak peace into your storm, but you keep trying to manage the storm with human strategy. You can't fight spiritual battles with natural solutions. You can't find divine clarity in carnal conversations. You keep bringing your calling into conversations with people who've never even heard from God for themselves. And then you wonder why you come out more confused, more anxious, more hurt than before. Because people can only give you what they've got. And some of them don't have wisdom. They've got wounds. They don't have discernment. They got opinions. And opinions won't heal your heart. God didn't create you to live in a feedback loop. He created you for communion. He wants to hear your voice. He wants to carry your pain. He wants to sit with you in the places no one else can reach. And while you're out here trying to be heard by people, God is calling you into a quiet place where he can speak to your soul. You've been trying to fix the symptoms instead of going to the source. You want the anxiety to stop, the fear to go away, the chaos to calm down, but you're looking for peace in the wrong direction. Peace doesn't come from people. It comes from the presence of God. That's why some of y'all can't sleep. You've had every conversation, but the one that matters. Listen, Peter, you're trying to feel better about talking, but what you really need is to be transformed by truth. And truth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from confrontation. God will confront you, not to condemn you, but to cleanse you. He'll show you what's broken in you, not to shame you, but so he can fix it. But you've got to come to him first. This is why prayer isn't optional. This is why you can't afford to replace prayer with people. Talking to people might feel good for the moment, but it won't change you. Talking to God, getting in his word, getting in his presence, laying at his feet. That's where breakthrough lives. That's where chains are broken. That's where you find clarity when the world is spinning. And listen, I'm not saying God won't use people. He does. He'll send a word through a friend. He'll send a touch through community. But you got to check who you're letting into your space. Some people are messengers. They're distractions. Some people are intercessors. They're interrupters. And when you tell the wrong person about your problem, you're opening the door to confusion, doubt, and discouragement. Stop opening your heart to people who are qualified to handle your process. Stop seeking a remedy from someone who can't even recognize your real issue. They see the surface, but God sees the soul. He sees the root. He sees what no man can see. And he loves you enough to meet you there. So before you call them, talk to him. Before you post it, pray about it. Before you vent, surrender. Because the peace you're looking for is waiting, not in their reply, but in his presence. One of the most dangerous things you can do when you're hurting is make permanent decisions from a temporary place. When your heart is heavy, when your mind is foggy, when your spirit is overwhelmed, it's easy to reach for quick fixes. It's easy to grab hold of whatever looks like comfort in the moment. But don't let the pressure of pain push you into the arms of people who were never assigned to your destiny. Don't let your emotions write checks your spirit can't cash. See, when you're in a vulnerable place, you crave connection. You crave understanding. You crave validation. And the enemy knows that. He watches your patterns. He sees when you're lonely, when you're weary, when you're desperate. That's when he sends counterfeits, distractions that feel like comfort, but end up delaying your calling. That's when you start sharing your heart with people who don't have the character to carry it. That's when you open up your soul to voices that feed your fear, not your faith. Some of you are entertaining people right now, not because they're good for your future, but because they make you feel seen in your pain. But feeling seen is not the same as being safe. Just because someone listens doesn't mean they're trustworthy. Just because someone shows up doesn't mean they were sent by God. You've got to stop confusing attention with assignment. Just because they were there for you in a dark moment doesn't mean they qualified to walk with you into your healing. Pain will pull people to you, but not always the right ones. Some folks are drawn to your weakness, not your strength. They come around when you're down, not to lift you, but because your brokenness makes them feel important. They like you needy. They like you dependent. But the moment you start getting strong, the moment your vision starts clearing, the moment you start standing on your own 2 feet, they disappear because they were never in love with your purpose. They were addicted to your pain. You've got to learn how to discern. Not everyone who says, I'm here for you, is really for you. Some people are simply curious about your goodness. They're not coming to pray for you. They're coming to peek at you. They want to see you struggle so they can feel better about their own situation. They smile in your face and whisper about you behind your back. They act like a friend. They carry the spirit of the spot. And it's time to close. It's time to stop letting everybody see this business. It's time to stop giving access to people who haven't proven they're safe. Vulnerability is valuable, and it deserves to be protected. You can't be so desperate for a listening ear that you sacrifice your discernment. You can't be so hungry for comfort that you open yourself up to confusion. Let me help you. There's some places God is taking you that demand a new level of relational discipline. You can't keep bringing old voices into a new season. You can't keep texting your way into soul ties that keep you bound. You can't keep leaning on people who were only meant to be a lesson, not a lifeline. Stop trying to resurrect relationships God has already buried. Stop trying to convince people to stay who were only meant to visit. When God starts elevating you, he also starts exposing what can't go with you. And some of that exposure comes through your pain, because pain doesn't just reveal your weakness, it reveals your circle. It shows you who's really praying and who's just pretending. It shows you who loves you for you and who loves you for what they can get from you. It shows you who's building with you and who's just watching. Don't ignore what pain reveals. Don't keep excusing behavior just because you're afraid to be alone. Sometimes solitude is safer than company. Sometimes silence is more healing than conversation. Sometimes God will strip it all away just so you can see who he is without the noise, without the crowd, without the distraction. And let me tell you, when God really starts working on your life, you'll lose some people. That's not a sign that something's wrong. That's a sign that something's being aligned. He's protecting your progress. He's pruning your path. Because where he's taking you, you can't afford to carry dead weight. You can't afford to keep explaining your worth. You can't afford to keep managing toxic energy in the name of history. God is calling you to guard your spirit. Guard your mind. Guard your heart. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Because when your soul is exposed, the enemy gets crafty. He sends smiling faces with sharp tongues. He sends warm hugs with cold intentions. And if you're not careful, you'll confuse a trap for a blessing. So don't let your pain pick your people. Let your purpose do that. Let your healing lead you. Let your discernment speak louder than your desperation. Because everyone who enters your life in a storm isn't meant to stay when the sun comes out. You've got to get to a place in your life where you stop needing everyone to know what you've been through. Stop needing the applause. Stop needing the sympathy. Stop needing the story to be shared for your pain to feel valid. There is a level of spiritual maturity where you realize you don't have to prove how much you suffered to justify how strong you've become. You don't owe anybody a breakdown to explain your breakthrough. That's where real power lives. Not in the performance, but in the silence. Not in the sharing, but in the surviving. There is something sacred about walking through hell and coming out with your head held high. Not because you told the world, but because you trusted God. Everybody doesn't need to know how deep the wound went. Everybody doesn't need to see the scar for you to know you've been healed. Your strength is not in your storytelling. It's in your Some of you are carrying too many conversations, too many explanations, trying to help people understand a season they were never meant to comprehend, trying to break down your wilderness for folks who've never walked a day in your shoes. But let me tell you, when God delivers you, when he restores you, when he raises you up from the ashes, the evidence will speak for itself. You won't have to announce it. You won't have to defend it. You won't have to explain it. See, there's a certain strength that doesn't talk. It shows up. It walks in the room differently. It carries peace when it used to be panic. It smiles when nothing looks easy. It shines with grace in the face of people who thought you wouldn't make it. You don't need to tell your story to every ear willing to listen, because some ears don't listen to understand. They listen to gossip. They listen to twist it and listen so they can repeat it in places your name should never be. And the more you speak to the wrong audience, the more you delay your own elevation. God is doing something in you that doesn't need marketing. You don't need to build a platform on your pain. You don't need to keep repeating how broken you were to validate how whole you are now. That's why he pulled you into isolation. That's why he let certain people walk away. That's why he didn't let you go viral. Because he didn't want your healing to become their entertainment.